everybody, and welcome to the May 2023 Global Power Platform Admins. We have a really great session today with Manuel Pichler joining us. We're going to dive right in. This is going to be a really technical session, so we're really excited to do this for the first time here. So just a little bit of housekeeping at the beginning. Again, if you haven't been here, welcome. We're a global community. We're dedicated to furthering the knowledge, maintaining and supporting the Power Platform, especially for administrators. So we're really happy to have you be part of this experience. Something special today. Want to take a second to introduce Akash Patel, who is now part of helping us move this forward. I personally am really excited. We're coming up on 1 year next month, so this is perfect timing and helping to grow this community, helping with leadership. So really excited to have Akash here. So I'm going to give Akash a second to just tell you about himself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be a part of this global admin community. So I work for a commerce company since April 2018. I started as an internship, transit from the Office 365 to owning the Power Platform in the organization. I'm kind of everywhere in the Power Platform where governance, innovators, applications development, everything falls under me. I have graduated from the Delaware State University. Currently lived in Delaware, and my degree is in IT, information technology. Fun stuff. I play cricket and do the volleyballs. So that's my the weekend activities. So it's been it's a pleasure to be a part of this group. Yeah.
Thanks, Akash. Well, we're excited to have you.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, and really quickly, just what's coming up. So we have the COE office hours tomorrow. So if you don't get enough today, and I'm sure there's going to be great stuff as usual tomorrow. That'll be happening 2 to 3 p.m. UTC. So do the math there. And then the ALM office hours are a week from Thursday. And then if you haven't already registered for it, Microsoft Build is May 23rd through 25th, and we're kind of expecting that there should be some cool stuff happening there. And then we'll just get right into this. So Manuela is joining us for the second time. So I think it's a little bit like Saturday Night Live. Manuela, you repeat hosting here. So we're really happy to have you here. We're going to talk about the Bring Your Own Data Lake, how this is working, kind of there's what's under the hood for those of us who are using this currently. And so we're excited to just get into this. What I can do too is if we have questions along the side, Manuel, I can just keep an eye on what's going on in chat, or you can feel free to raise your hand. Again, really interactive on this one, and we'll just jump into it. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm excited and a little bit nervous about this because I don't have any slides, so it will all be live demo. Yeah, I hope I made enough, have enough goodwill with the demo gods for the next hour or so. So yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Manuela. I'm part of the Power Apps Customer Advisory team at Microsoft, and many of you might know me from just talking about the COE Starter Kit. In today's session, it will be a little bit different because we'll talk more about kind of what's behind the scenes of the kit and what kind of powers the inventory of the kit, which is we're gonna talk about kind of the product feature behind it and how you can use that to get data from it, and how we kind of ingest the data, which might either help you build kind of your own reports or just generally help you with troubleshooting. So hopefully that's okay, and I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll go from there. This is the right one. And then I'll just paste another link into. So the feature we're talking about is it has Many names, unfortunately. In the product, it's called data export. In our documentation, it is kind of under the line of data export, but it is also referred to as self-serve analytics. And then some of our customers refer to it as kind of bring your own data lake as well. So all three of those terms very often mean kind of the same thing. So the way to set up this feature is in the Power Platform Admin Center under Analytics, you'll find this data export option. And from here, you set up a data export of your inventory and telemetry to your own Azure storage account. So you will be setting up a storage account in your Azure subscription. And then by setting up the export here, you'll receive a daily export. So it's every 24 hours of inventory and usage data into your into that storage account that sits in your subscription, and that data is then there for you to build your own reports and processes on top of. And basically, the CUE kit has been architected now to use that data as well. So we're a consumer of that data that is provided, just like you would be a consumer if you build your own reports on top of that. I'll just quickly show you kind of how you would set that up if you've not done that yet. You need to be a global admin to set that up initially, or a global admin needs to set that up initially, and you need to have access, either owner or contributor access to the Azure storage account and the Azure subscription. And you would set it up separately for Power Apps and Power Automate if you're interested in information for both, which typically customers kind of want to have both of these there. So you select Power Apps there, and then you would select your subscription, your usage, or your resource group. I'll just try and find the one that I've. What is my group called? Oh, yeah, there we go. And then your storage account. And here it will tell me that I can't proceed because we've already set that up. But basically, once you've done that, you could select create there. And then you will see that the account here is, or the connection here is created. And then it can take, we've seen it take up to 5 days for all data to kind of start flowing into your storage account. So if you initially don't see anything, as long as this says connected here, it should be fine. Unfortunately, at the moment, this feature doesn't have any logging or kind of error messages beyond the connected and failed status here. So if you see a failed here, you would have to raise a support ticket for the support team to kind of help you overcome that or learn about kind of what's gone wrong there. But yeah, usually this should be fine and stay connected there. And then the next. So this is kind of the first puzzle piece, is setting up the data export. The second puzzle piece is then the storage browser. So once I'll go back to the overview. So once you've set up the data export, data gets written to your storage account. So that's something that's in your tenant. You have kind of full control over it. It is your from that moment on, it is your data. So let's look at some of the data that is provided there, just to give you kind of an overview of how that looks. So what gets created is that Power Platform folder here, and under there you've got the Power Apps and Power Automate folder, which is the ones that we're mainly worried about. And you might also see the test folder, and that just does a writability check to see if kind of the connection between Microsoft and your storage account has been successful there. Under the Power Apps folder, you'll see folders for applications, connection references, connections, environments, and usage. And like kind of the name suggests, in this folder, you'll find inventory information about your applications, inventory information about your environments, and usage information about your applications. And then the same is true for Power Automate, where you've got the flow and the flow usage folders, and then flow connection references basically has information about the connectors used as part of flows. So all of these are made up of make up kind of your inventory and usage information. And then like hopefully it's interesting if we kind of dissect some of the data that's in there as well. So for usage, you will see that you get a file every day. And if I sort that, you can see that it's not immediate, right? Like, so here is the usage file for the 5th of May, and in my tenant, I received that on the 7th of May. So there's kind of a 2-day lag between, and sometimes like a 3-day lag between receiving that data. So you can't kind of, if you're looking for near real-time reporting, the data export telemetry won't be able to provide that. There is kind of that lag, but basically, on a daily basis, you receive a file that contains app launch information of the applications that were launched in your tenant. And we'll download one of those files so we can look at that in a bit as well. Then the environments folder is less interesting. That just contains one file that contains a list of your environments. We'll look at that as well. And that gets kind of, instead of like having a daily file, this file just gets overwritten every day with the latest information. And then in the applications folder, you will see you have canvas and model exports. So you get one file per environment for canvas files and one file per environment for model. And basically the file name here is the environment ID. So it might be kind of, if I look for the default environment, it might be more obvious. So here I've got like my default environment ID, and I've got one file for the model-driven apps in that environment and one file for the canvas apps in that environment. And again, you get a daily update, but it doesn't, on a daily basis, you don't get new files. It's just the existing kind of GUID file will be overwritten if there's been any changes in that environment. So here you can kind of see that my Canvas apps in my default environment haven't changed since the 5th of April, so I haven't received a new file there. And that's kind of how you can kind of identify where you've received information there. The flow structure is very similar. You get one file per environment for flows and then a daily file for the usage. So the next thing we look at is some of the JSON files that you get. So you get kind of an understanding of what those files look like. Just open that in here. So I've downloaded one of the app usage files earlier, the one for a couple of days ago, and you can see this is kind of like one JSON element here identifies an app launch event. So you get kind of the tenant, the environment, the app that was launched, object ID is the user who launched the application, and you get the time that the application was launched. There's a couple of placeholders for things like country code, platform, and browser, but those aren't populated yet. So you will see that for all of the app launches, that this is either the dash or the unknown. I think I guess the data export feature is just providing them as a placeholder for now until they're populated. Then let's look at the environment file. And again, kind of you see like the similar JSON structure. So this one of these elements is information about one environment. You get kind of the environment ID, name, the region, the state, the type, the security group associated with that environment, when it was created and when it was last modified. So quite kind of basic inventory information. And then the same is true for applications and flows. So if you look at kind of Canvas apps, you've got this JSON element here, and it again gives you like resource IDs, the app ID, the name, description, kind of who created it, who last modified it, the type, which here is like classic Canvas app. And one thing to note that we've so you get for the I guess one thing that we've recently had an issue with is for owner, it gives you the name, and then each year, and then for create, like who created it, you get the ID. So this is I guess the owner name that's not unique in any tenant, not even in our kind of little demo tenant. And so using kind of just the information from the data export, it's hard to identify who the current owner of the application is without making additional calls to use, for example, the Power Apps for Admin Connector to find that out. So obviously with the created ID, you can find that user in Azure Active Directory, so that's the user ID. But for the owner, you don't get the ID, so you only have kind of the display name, and that's that's just not enough to identify, to uniquely identify the owner. So that's something to keep in mind for your reporting. Is you might have to kind of make additional calls to get the owner information there. But yeah, basically that's kind of the that's what you get from the data export feature. It's just a bunch of JSON files, some that you get daily, some that you get less often. And kind of this is where sort of the product feature ends. It provides you with the data export, and then it is up to you on how you want to consume that data and what you want to build on top of it. So there's obviously kind of there's multiple ways in which you can consume that data. Like this is just, like JSON files in a storage account. We have some customers who are transforming them to Parquet files and putting them in Azure Synapse and a data warehouse. And then combining them with kind of their own data warehouse data that they might have on their organizational structure or org hierarchy, etc., to build kind of really advanced reporting on top of it. With the COE kit, we've gone a more low-code approach. So we're using Power BI data flows to read the data from the JSON files, prepare the data, and then the Power BI dashboard is built on top of the Power BI data flows. So we wanted to use this kind of as an opportunity to use another low-code tool, so data flows, to kind of integrate that with the kit and show off what is possible with low-code. But definitely what I'm about to show you is not the only way to ingest that data. And sometimes it really depends on kind of your I guess your overall strategy for reporting and analytical needs in your organization. So I guess I'm just showcasing kind of one of the ways to read that data.
And Manuela, Naveen was
yeah.
asking too,
Mhm.
do we need to have guardrails in place before storing sensitive data and data lake? We were kind of talking about just admin groups or AD groups. I was saying how we do it with the resource group, everything like that. Any guidance there?
Yeah, so I guess our guidance is mostly around who will have access to that storage browser. So you would, I think, similar to other Azure resources, your guardrails would be around the access control. So the access that you need to kind of consume the data is typically the storage blob data reader access. So you might, I guess, you wouldn't want everyone, you might not want to have everyone to have access to this data. So you would limit who has access to it by only assigning the reader role and not the writer role, for example, to specific users that access the data. And then again, similar with the resource group and the I guess the overall subscription. So that's kind of one. That's probably the one recommendation that we have there. The other one is around data retention. So data just gets written to the storage account, and not like Microsoft doesn't delete anything that's been written. So one of the folders that obviously grows over time is the usage folder. So you can see, I've got that set up since October last year. So I've got a file for every day there. If you've got a lot of usage, that could consume quite a lot of storage space. So you might want to think about your retention policies for usage data, like how far back do you want to report on Power Apps usage? Is it 3 months, 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? And then kind of specify retention policies to clean up the data that's that you no longer need. So we don't. I mean, it's obviously it's quite a new feature, and not a lot of customers have kind of enough data they're built up to put in place retention policies. But it's probably one thing to keep in mind that you might not want kind of 5 years or 10 years of data lying around in that folder. And then it really depends, I guess, on your definition of sensitive data. So we do have one customer where after transforming that data, they've made it available to their entire organization. So it's not the storage account that's available, but they've transformed it into a data warehouse, and that data warehouse is available to everyone in the org. So each maker can build a report for their own applications. Each manager can build reporting for makers in their team about kind of the activities that they do and the apps that they are building. So I guess it really depends on what you consider sensitive information. Like the customer that I just mentioned, they don't consider like app IDs and who's made applications and what connectors they're using sensitive. So they've kind of made that data really broadly available so that everyone can self-serve analytics, which I think is, in a decentralized organization where you will have kind of environment owners in different departments, and you will have like business departments that own Power Platform adoption. It's a really good idea to make data available for them to self-serve. And if you're doing that, then you might want kind of additional guardrails in terms of and you couldn't do that with the storage account. You'd have to like put an additional layer on top of it so that makers can only see their data or things like that. So that then can become a little bit more complicated, but I guess worth mentioning. So yeah.
That's great. I didn't even think about that.
So yeah, I guess that this is it's a good kind of point into my next because I almost forgot about it. So even if you're so I'm going to show how to consume the data with Power BI data flows. And the way that works is even if so here I'm an owner of the storage account, I still need the storage blob data reader role assigned to my account. Otherwise, the connection in the data flow fails. And it says that you don't have enough permissions to connect there. So it's kind of very specific for that storage blob data role that you need to consume the data there. So that's kind of worth calling out there. And then I thought, and I hope that, and Andrew, please intervene if I'm wrong. I thought it would be good to kind of create a data flow from scratch, so you can see some of the steps that we take in the COE kit to transform the data and make it a little bit more transparent. Does that work?
I think that'd be fantastic. That'd be great.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. So I've got the COE data flow here as well, and we can kind of dive into that to look at the finished picture. And then I'll just create a sample one that consumes a little bit of the data from the data export just to show you kind of some of the steps that we're doing. Fingers crossed. So we'll create a new data flow and start with kind of defining new tables here. And the way the data we use kind of the Azure Data Lake storage account connector there to connect to it. And paste in the URL. To find the URL, usually what I do, and there might be I guess there might be better options to do both the data flow as well as kind of the work in Azure. This is kind of what I'm used to. So I kind of check the folder structure here. So I know that it's, Power Platform, Power Apps applications. So I know that that's kind of the path. And then under endpoints here, you can find the base URL for the data lake storage. So I copy that and then append the folder structure, so between kind of Power Power Platform, Power Apps, and applications there. Oh, and it's file system view that we get. And that literally just fetches the files that are in that folder. So I can see, brings in the canvas and model files. It doesn't bring in the JSON data yet. That's part of the transformation that we do in the data flow. So that's the next step. So initially you kind of just get, like a row for each file that you have in the data export. First thing I'll do is I'll rename that to apps, because that's the folder that we're in right now. And then one thing that I've talked to a few people that use kind of the data export by themselves, and one thing that is kind of the initial hurdle is you might want to kind of immediately transform that binary file to a JSON file by kind of like clicking on that. It obviously discovers that this is, JSON. It tries to read it using the JSON document function, and it stumbles over this error. The reason for that error is that if you look at the document here, this is not well formatted JSON. It's actually a format called JSON line format, where you just have one JSON object after the other. And the Power BI JSON function can't digest that. If you look at the Power Query documentation, you can find that documented here as well. And then there's a suggested solution, and I'll admit that solution didn't work for me. So what I'm doing next is super hacky, and I hope you you can kind of follow me. But basically, what I'm doing next is using string replacement to turn the this document into a well-formatted JSON document by, and I'll show you how to do that in Power Query. But basically, what we're doing is, in order to make this well-formatted JSON, it needs to have a square bracket at the beginning, and between each element, it needs to have a comma, and only then does the JSON function in Power Query understand that this is a JSON document. It's then a JSON array. So what we're going to do is we'll prepare a function that does all of this string work for us. And I guess I'll show you how to do this, and I'll also paste this link in. And if someone figures out how to make this work, then please do let me know. And and we can make our query a lot easier. But I couldn't, and I guess I'm not a Power Query expert. But this is the only part that I've copy and pasted in the spirit of I've prepared this earlier. The rest of the steps I'll do kind of live, I guess. But yeah, basically we're getting kind of the text from the binary file. We're replacing all curly brackets with a curly bracket and a comma. Then we'll get rid of the last comma, and then we'll append the square bracket at the beginning and at the end. And then we can use the JSON document function to turn it into JSON. So that's, I guess, the dark magic that happens in the background to read those JSON line files. And I know I've talked to kind of a few customers who've had issues with reading the JSON because it's in JSON line format. So I thought I'd kind of mention that. And then the query will just call transform file. And then what we do from here is we'll insert a new column where we invoke that function, the transform file function, and we'll use the binary content here. So that's kind of the file content of the JSON file to add a new column there. And then we'll wait a couple of seconds.
And this is also using, you have to be in a premium space, right, for this?
So yes, I think there's, so we use a Power BI Premium workspace because we use incremental refresh when it comes to the app usage folder. And then we use computed tables where some of the merges we do are really complicated, and that requires kind of the advanced, the premium capability of Power BI. I think you could probably so for the COE kit, definitely you need a Power BI Premium workspace now to make it work. If you're consuming the data by yourself, you could probably make it work in a Pro workspace, but without incremental refresh, as your usage data grows, it would just become really, really slow because it would load the entire usage folder on a daily basis, basically. So that you could hit performance issues really, really quickly as your usage folder grows on a daily basis. So yeah, the recommendation is to use I guess a premium workspace all up for some of this.
So
Great,
Andrew,
thanks.
just to add on that, even if you use the data flow, it will require your workspace to be a premium because it considered the data flow as a premium feature.
Yeah, the alternative would be doing this transformation directly in a Power BI dashboard. Again, then, as soon as you load the Power BI dashboard, it would have to do all of the transformation and all of the data loading. So it could cause like the loading of the dashboard would become really slow. So that's kind of one of the reasons we use the data flow for that. So it can do kind of a lot of the work in the background. So now we've called kind of the function to transform the binary file that we had into a JSON document. Now I've got this record per line here, and I can expand that from that. And this is where like the Power Query magic happens. Now it knows automatically. In no place have I told it the JSON file structure. It just knows now what kind of columns are available to me. So from here, you could obviously expand all of them. I'm just going to expand a couple to show you some of the next steps. So we'll expand the app ID, the environment ID, the display name, the state, and the AD ID of the user who created it. So now I've got kind of all of that information, but I've also still got all of the noise from the file system, like the extension of the file and when the file was created, which actually, like, I don't need any of that. So at this step, what I usually do is I've got the files already highlighted from where I expanded it, and I'm going to remove all the other columns. So now I've got all of my app inventory in this table here, loaded from the JSON files there. So you can see you get one JSON file per environment, and now I've got that expanded here. So the environment ID is kind of, like duplicated, and the app ID is there just once. The other thing I want to do, and that's, I think, more like personal preference rather than something that you have to do. I don't think that the names they use for the columns in the JSON are very descriptive. So in this step, I'm going to rename them. So instead of resource ID, I want to call it app ID, and then app type, and then display name, and then created by. And that just makes it easier for me to kind of read the tables like going forward, because I know what's there. So now we've got that, all of that information. And then obviously I should have done that before. I've removed other columns because now I broke it. We'll just fix that up quickly. There we go. So yeah, kind of in a very very quick demo here is like how you read the app folder, the applications folder from the data lake into your own table. The next issue that we have is the like I said, the data export only writes, it doesn't delete. So basically what you could have here is an environment inventory file where the environment has been deleted. So that, I could have deleted that environment, but because the file still exists in the data export, it would still be It's still there, it's still red. I don't have a deleted flag or anything, so I don't know that this has been deleted. So what we have to do in this case is we'll bring in the environment information, and then we'll join the two tables together to only keep app inventory where the environment still exists. So that's what we'll be doing next. And we'll follow like quite similar steps there. So we'll look at the sorry, lost my screen here. Yeah, and in this time we'll bring in the information from the environments folder. So I'll just look at what the folder is called. Yeah, it's called environments. There we go. This obviously only brings in that one environment JSON file, so I can create that there. And then call that environments. And we'll so this transform file step it can be like reused. It's not specific to the application JSON. All of the JSON files have the same problem of being I guess it's not a problem. It was a problem for me when I created a Power Query because I couldn't just use the JSON function. But yeah, they have the same kind of format of being in the JSON line format. So I can use that same function kind of across all of the tables now, hopefully. And then again, once I've expanded that, it first brings in kind of the list of, it first expands the file into a list, and then from the list I can expand the individual records. And there again, I can select, the region, maybe the state, the environment type, and when it was created is maybe what I'm interested now. And I won't rename any columns this time. Got all of my columns here selected, and again I can now remove what I no longer need from the file system. I think it's good practice to kind of remove columns that you no longer need, so they don't they won't show up when you create your report, so you're not kind of confused about what you want to use, and they reduce the data that the data flow has to handle, so there's kind of less data that is being processed there. So now I've got a list of all of my environments that definitely still exist in my tenant. And then I've got a list of all of my applications where I know that maybe some of the environments have been deleted. So what I'll do now is I'll perform a merge and only keep kind of data that is that those things have in common. So on the app table, I'll select the environment ID, and then on the environments table, I'll select the environment ID. And then I'll perform an inner join. And what I really like about Power Query is, I'll admit I've never been someone who really understood right outer, left anti things very well. So I really like kind of the visual representation here, where I know this is what I want to do. I only want to keep the ones where the environment ID in applications and the still exists, obviously, and the environment ID or the environments where this kind of exists as well. So I'll combine the data here, and that filters out everything that everything that's been deleted. So now it kind of tells me that it's combining data from multiple sources. So I've got the environments folder and the applications folder. Even though they're in the same storage account, Power Query comes up with that warning, and you have to continue to reveal data between those two sources. So that's kind of one step to do there. And then now I'm kind of ready with that merged query there. And then I think I'll do one last demo, and then we can go into, I can either show kind of the Power BI dashboard in the COE kit, or we can kind of go like do a round of questions as well there. So I won't expand anything from the environments table here, but you could, so here it now has knowledge of all of the columns that the environments table has. you kind of could expand on there. The other thing that is a typical kind of use case is, the created by user ID is not, I don't know who that user is. You want like the display name or where the department they're in, their job title, etc. for reporting. That's information that's not available in the data lake. Obviously, like Microsoft doesn't know. All we have is kind of that that user ID to connect to the application. So typically, what I use is the AD users table from a Dataverse environment to join the two together. And that's kind of the easiest way to consume that data. You could also, if you have like your own API to connect to get your organization information, you could use that as well. But I guess like using the AD users table is available to everyone. So for that, we'll perform an OData query against the Dataverse environment. So I think I've got it here. Yeah, so here I've just got my environment where I've got the CV kit installed, and the table that we're looking to connect to is this virtual AD users table that contains a list of all of the AD users that are in the tenant. So it's I guess it's not a system table, but it's something that's provided when you create an environment. So there's no work for you to get that data kind of populated and in there. That's that's done for you. So we'll connect to that environment now once I've logged in.
This is really great seeing how you can integrate all these components. This is really, really cool.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I know it's a lot of jumping around between kind of different components, and I wasn't sure if it was kind of valuable to see how it all like came together or how we started building it. When we this is basically how we started. It was kind of like, oh, now I have the applications, what do I do next? Oh, now I have the user ID, like what do I do next? So here we'll select the AD users table and create that, and that basically kind of brings that information into the data flow. And now you could either kind of do a you could either just have that table in the Power BI dashboard if you wanted and merge kind of in from there. That would work as well. We kind of bring it in the data flow, and then again perform a merge to bring that information in. So now I'll merge the who created it with the user ID there. And in this case, I want to do a left join. And the reason for that is that if a user has left the organization, I would get the created by ID here, and they would no longer exist in the right side of the join. And so this is kind of your way of being able to identify if an application has been orphaned, where if this doesn't resolve. So in my case, I've got, it resolves most of them, but there are like some 600-700 apps that aren't, where it doesn't resolve. That's kind of my clue that they're maybe orphaned or they're owned by someone who's not in AAD. So that could also be an application user, of course. So that's kind of a few things to take into consideration there. Or it could be like a system user, like some of the like this Solution Health Hub you've probably seen in your environments. It gets auto-created by Dataverse that's owned by a system user. It doesn't have a created by information there, so that obviously would be empty there. And then from here, I guess all I'm going to do is expand the for now the display name, so you can kind of see what information is brought in there.
So this really opens up extending what what you as the team have built.
Yes. Yeah. So this is kind of how we started, and to continue, you would I guess you wouldn't kind of start from scratch. You would probably use the data flow that we have in the COE kit to get started. So why don't I bring that up next, and then we can kind of dive into the questions if there are any. So the next steps here would be to read like the usage information, the flow information, bring in the connectors that the applications use. But again, you might not, I wanted to show it to you so you kind of could understand what's in the background and what's going on there. But if you were to kind of extend your reporting, you would probably start from our data flow that's provided with the COE kit. And that already kind of prepares all of this information. So if I click on kind of edit tables there, some of this will now look familiar because we've just done it, and you'll see that the data flow performs some additional steps, like kind of obviously brings in the remaining tables. It translates the Power Apps type. So maybe what you've seen is when I showed you the JSON file, you've seen that something was called Classic Canvas App, and custom pages are called custom pages, and model-driven apps are called app module in the data export. So we do a little bit of translation here to make it more readable and consumable. So instead of app module, we add kind of a column where this is then called model-driven, where in the dashboard you can kind of understand what it means. So there's a little bit more transformation going on here. But yeah, basically kind of the basic process is the same. And then the Power BI dashboard is built on the data that the data flow provides. So why don't we kind of stop there and see if there's any questions, or if there's anything else you'd like me to demo when it comes to that. I know that like the last missing puzzle piece is the Power BI dashboard that consumes it. So we could show that quickly, or just do questions, I guess.
I think it'd be great to see the Power that dashboard in place, because I think this, especially for troubleshooting, is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah. So I'll show it first. Oh, I'm hoping I can. Yeah, I'll drag it over. So I'll show first kind of how we connect to it, and then I'll bring it up. I'll bring up the finished version as well. So under get data, so instead of like now connecting to the storage account, we connect to the output from the data flow. So the data flow does all of the heavy lifting for us in terms of like preparing the data, renaming columns to make them like readable, filtering out stuff that's no longer needed. All of that like lifting is done by the data flow. So from here you can select, I think we still use the Power BI data flow legacy connector because the data flow one wasn't available when we built it first, but there's no difference between the two. You can then select connect, and when you connect, you can select the workspace that your Power BI data flow is in. And from there you select the data flow, and then you bring in the different tables. So this one is, I guess this is a good step for you to follow if you were to build your own reporting. So the Power BI dashboard doesn't, like Power BI dashboards don't support merging. So if you take our dashboard and create kind of new reports and new pages, in that, if we make kind of upgrades, then you would you would constantly have to like copy and paste them across to the new dashboard, and it's just not very efficient. So if you do have kind of your own reporting requirements, we recommend that you kind of create a new report from scratch, bring in all of our data, and then just build and maybe your own data that you need. So again, you could obviously bring in other data sources into this as well, and then like publish both of the reports to the same workspace to make them easy to consume, but basically kind of don't extend extend our dashboard just because merging or upgrading will become really difficult. So yeah, now we'll kind of load that data. Now you've got in that Power BI dashboard all of the data that we have that we've prepared through the data flow. I'm sorry, we've just got a thunderstorm just started, so I hope you neither hear the thunder nor my dog freaking out about the thunder.
It's just a good example of what you're doing here. Oh, that's all the power, Manuela.
Yeah, good. Yeah. It's the demo heaven being angry because everything went really well, and they're like, "Oh,
right.
We have to like unleash the thunder now."
Precisely.
Oh yeah. So this is okay. I guess it's loading quite a lot of data. I'll wait another second, and if it doesn't get done, then I'll just jump to the one where the data is already loaded. Or we'll come back. And maybe I shouldn't have selected flow usage, seeing as that's the the really biggest data that we have. Yeah, I think I just clicked around randomly. I had hoped to select app usage, but never mind. Okay, let's look at the finished dashboard then. Yeah, I'll drag that over.
And while that's loading, Akash was also wondering too. You were asking about the if there was a roadmap for any other components that are going to go to the data export feature. Is that right, Akash?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So I think the first. So if you look at the documentation, you can kind of see that this feature is still in preview. So the whole kind of data export in the product is still a preview feature. So the first roadmap item is to actually make it GA. And for that, I think they're still working on some reliability issues. I know we had kind of an outage last week where the data wasn't provided correctly. So some of that is still being worked on. And then we've provided them with feedback on data that we have in the CUE kit today that's not part of the data export. Yes, like a really basic example is that everything here is called like a classic Canvas app, for example, and you can't differentiate between a regular Canvas app and a SharePoint form Canvas app. So some of those kind of things we've asked the team to provide us with, things like having the ID for the owner rather than the name. And I think that's kind of the next priority, because at the moment we have to use flows in the background to kind of make up for some of the parity gaps. So we didn't want customers to see the data export Power BI dashboard and think, oh, well, this is like a lot less information than the CUE kit gives us. Why should we kind of switch to that? So we have like flows that run in the background to complement the data export feature, and we obviously want to kind of get rid of that. So I would say that's the next priority for the team. And then yes, like longer term, I guess the roadmap is that everything that's a resource in the Power Platform would be available via data export. I think desktop flows is probably the next priority, because cloud flows are already in there, and a lot of how cloud flows are stored kind of in our background systems is very similar. So hopefully kind of onboarding desktop flows onto the data export pipeline is a quick win. But yeah, so I guess it's going to be a journey that hopefully starts with the GA of that feature, and then increased usage and increased customer feedback. So the more customers that take a dependency on that feature and use it and find value in it, the more justification the team has to invest more in it. So I'm just being really transparent here, and we are recording, but that's okay. I'm not giving anything away that you don't already know. But like if people use it, then there is a need for further investment. But yeah, so there is hopefully continued investment there.
Any date has been announced when this feature will go to GA?
No, we don't have I've talked to the team last week, and they don't have a GA date yet, but I know it's kind of their top priority. So hopefully it will be soon, but yeah, I don't have a date myself.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is still loading. So I'll just, so yeah, here we've got the Power BI dashboard in the COE kit that you're quite familiar with. And this is now bringing in data from the data lake using the data flow. So everything that starts here with BYOD is coming from the data flow, and then everything else is still coming in from the COE kit table. So in order to kind of make up for things like desktop flows and PowerShell agents that are not yet available in data export, we're still bringing that in from the COE kit tables, from the sync flows, and then all of the, I guess if you look at it, the dashboard won't look that different. It's just that where it gets the information from is now different. So it's now using the data flow instead of the tables that we used to have to bring in that information.
This is amazing stuff, Manuel. Really, really amazing.
Yeah, I hope it was not too much jumping around and you could kind of see where I was going with it. And if we wanted to, I don't know, like if we wanted to do kind of another deep dive into something like this, I'm more than happy to, come join you again. Oh, it's okay,
I think it would
sweetie.
be really, really helpful. So I think we'll probably all be reviewing this, and I think it's going to become very, very useful for a lot of people. So we definitely appreciate this.
So, Manuela, I have one quick question. So in the current COE kit, there is an audit log component, right? Solution.
Yeah.
Now, the custom connector which is built, which pulls the data from the Office 365 compliance portal, now the connection works for me only like a week, and after that it's broke again, and then I have to redo the connections again and again. I was thinking maybe I found another way to do it, but then the APIs does not work anymore. So I'm like, okay, I have to revisit that. So I was thinking maybe instead of currently we are just bringing the launch app, edited application, right? Only those few related audit logs. Now in the Office 365 compliance portal, there is a whole lot of other logs for the Power Platform, right? So is there any plan to bring all the logs into the Power BI dashboards or something? Because currently in our scenario, security doesn't give us the control access to the Office 365 compliance portal. So for us to look at it, okay, who has edited the DLP policies and all of those things like those logs, we can't see those information. So is there any plan to bring those kind of details into the Power BI?
Yeah, so I have hopefully good news. So we know that the custom connector has been really temperamental and a lot of people struggle with the chunking size. So with the update, with the May release that's going out next week, we're going to get rid of the custom connector and replace it with an HTTP core. It's using the same app registration, and we've implemented pagination for that. So you no longer have to do the chunking. The flow will kind of say, is there a next page? And then perform like a while loop until no more data is found. So you no longer have to worry about, a 10-minute, like, the environment variables, all of that gone and hopefully forgotten. And hopefully that will bring some kind of relief in like how the audit logs are gathered. And then our plan was to monitor how people get on with that new HTTP connector, if it's more stable in terms of keeping the connection, if really all kind of logs are now gathered with that pagination. And then once we have kind of verification that that works, then we'll extend it to bring in the other log events kind of as well. Probably not all of them, but like things like editing DLP policies, like high on our list there. But yeah, I don't think we would like replicate the entire log, because things like creating an app and editing an app, I think it would just fill up your Dataverse table with the audit log like quite quickly in terms of capacity. But things like editing DLP policies, which like hopefully don't happen every 5 minutes. That's something that we'll be looking at bringing in.
Yeah. I was not planning to put it into the Dataverse. I was planning to just connect the Power BI directly to the Office 365.
Oh, okay.
rather than bring those data
Yeah.
into the Dataverse and then store those data, because it's going to take a lot of space on the log side.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
you were
that's
looking
what
at.
I was trying to do. I haven't got any luck yet, but
Yeah. We've tried to we've not tried connecting the Power BI dashboard to the Office 365 log. So we can give that a go. We've tried using the Graph API to connect to get kind of information. And to be honest, the Power BI load time was just really slow bringing some of that information in. So yeah, I guess maybe now that we have. I think last time I looked at it, I wasn't that familiar with like Power BI stuff and Power Query. So maybe now that we have more experience with like data flows and things like that, that could be kind of an option to explore there. So yeah, that's a good idea to kind of get around storing the data like twice, I guess. So yeah, we can explore that. I'll let you know how we get on. I haven't tried it
sure.
myself yet.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic. I know we're at time here, Manuela. So just want to thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us today. And I think we will definitely try and get you back to keep going on this route. And as I said, we'll make sure that this recording is out for everybody here probably in the next few days. So thank you so much
No, thank you for having
your
me.
time
This
here.
was yeah, this was great fun, and the demos went as well as I had hoped, but I didn't get through. I guess I wanted to show the Power BI dashboard more, and then we ran out of time. But it went as well as expected, so that's
Well,
good. I'm glad.
we'll be happy to have you back, and I think we're going to try and continue talking about this next month
Okay.
as well. So this is great. So everybody, don't forget that the COE office hours happen tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
And the
yes.
link is in here, and then I'm sure we're going to be hearing more with the new releases. So thank you so much, really appreciate
So,
it.
Thank you.
Andrew.